2014.
I call the honourable member for Denison.
Good morning, Deputy Speaker. I present the Telecommunications Amendment giving the Community Rights on Phone Towers Bill 2014 and the explanatory memorandum.
Is the motion seconded? Sorry, Clerk. Clerk.
First reading, a bill for an act to give the community rights in relation to the development of phone towers and certain telecommunications facilities and for related purposes.
Member for Denison.
Deputy Speaker, I move that this bill now be read a second time. Deputy Speaker, there's been some constants in my 4 years in this role. Interestingly, one of the constants has been the problems that communities right around Australia are having with proposals for the establishment or the change to phone towers. I have been constantly surprised at how often this has come up and the range of areas excuse me, affected, the range of community groups who are disaffected by these proposals. Within my own electorate of Denison, there was a very controversial proposal to establish a very elaborate mobile phone tower structure in Sandy Bay, which caused the community all sorts of grief. There was another phone tower erected in Taroona, which again caused the Taroona community a great amount of grief. One proposal which has now been built, I regret to say, which took up a lot of my time, was the erection of a phone tower on the old Cadbury grounds at Claremont in the north of my electorate. This was a particularly troublesome development, one that exercised the community a great deal, and when I did a poll of the local community in that part of Claremont, an overwhelming majority of the community did not want that development in that location, but yet it went ahead and it's now being constructed. And even as I speak, there's another controversial proposal for a phone tower at the end of Merton Street in Glenorchy, again in the northern part of my electorate. Quite a remarkable proposal that this phone tower will be in someone's backyard, and because of the slope of the land, it will literally be the transmitting arrays will literally be just outside the window of a bedroom of the adjoining house. So there's 4 examples just in 4 years, just in my own electorate. It would be fair enough to assume that those sorts of problems in those sorts of numbers and more are occurring in electorates right around Australia. And certainly since I've been outspoken about the issue of phone towers and the anxiety that the developments are causing many communities, I have been approached, my office has been approached repeatedly by communities right around the country saying that there are developments in their own areas and no one seems to be listening, that the telcos seem to have all the rights, that councils have few rights and the community seems to have no rights. Hence, in 2011, Deputy Speaker, I moved a private member's bill that would give community greater rights. But that bill went nowhere because the then Labor government didn't seem to be interested in bringing it on for a debate and for a decision. And even now, with a change of government, a Liberal national government, there seems to be little appetite with the new government as well. Well, Deputy Speaker, I don't know what politicians think their roles are if it's not to represent their community. But yet it seems in Australia that powerful companies, whether they be the banks or the supermarkets or the telecommunications company, they seem to be all-powerful and they seem to be able to dangle governments on fairly short strings, almost like puppets, that these big companies seem to be able to do virtually whatever they want. Well, I will not be deterred, because the problem remains, and in fact the problem in some ways is getting worse with the rollout of many NBN towers. The problem remains that there are developments going on all the time around this country which are, for very good reasons, concerning local communities, that the developments are inappropriate or inappropriate places, that, yes, we do need phone towers, but the telcos really should be considering other places to put those phone towers. They shouldn't be in the middle of heritage areas. They shouldn't be out the front of a primary school or an early childhood education centre. You know, but the problem is, of course, Deputy Speaker, that the telcos want the cheapest location. So often it is in the middle of a heritage area or out the front of a school, because they want it, you know, near a road, near power. They're not prepared to pay that little bit extra to perhaps move the tower to a less than perfect, perhaps a slightly more expensive location. So the problem remains, and I am moving another private member's bill, one that would give communities greater power. Now, this is not an attempt, Deputy Speaker. It's not an attempt in any way to stop the rollout of phone towers or the enhancement of existing phone towers around the country. Of course, we need these things. You know, on my desk at the moment, I've got an iPad, I've got a smartphone. They need towers. The issue is, where do we put them, and do we listen to the communities when communities have legitimate concerns about exactly where those towers are going? So that brings us to this bill, Deputy Speaker, and if I could just quickly explain what the bill seeks to do. For a start, it expands the number of people who would require to be notified when a telecommunications tower is proposed to be built or substantially modified. Currently, Deputy Speaker, only the owner or occupier of the land on which the new tower will be built must be notified, meaning that owners and occupiers of land immediately adjacent to a major development may not even know about the development until construction commences. Specifically, Deputy Speaker, the bill stipulates notification of those within 500 metres of any new tower. Now, Deputy Speaker, some people have the misplaced idea that currently there's a requirement that everyone within 100 metres of a new tower be notified, but in fact not even that is enshrined in law and is often ignored. Deputy Speaker, this bill would extend the amount of time for owners or occupiers of affected land to respond. Currently in law, people are given just 10 business days to respond after being notified, and this is obviously, Deputy Speaker, a very difficult task for some individuals or for local landholders, and even a hard task for councils, which often have to consult subcommittees or hold public meetings. So this bill would give people who are consulted a much fairer 30 business days to respond after being notified of a development application. Deputy Speaker, the bill would restrict the type of developments which can be declared under legislative instruments, and in particular it would restrict the low impact determination which allows new developments to avoid scrutiny under the current law. Now, Deputy Speaker, I do acknowledge that some projects must be classified as low impact and therefore regulated federally to assist development, but there have been numerous cases where low impact facilities have had a high impact on local communities, and there hasn't been a need for a development application. This bill declares that no new telecommunications tower may be categorised as low impact, and that for an extension to a tower to be declared low impact, it must not extend the height of the tower by more than 1 additional metre. Deputy Speaker, the bill also would remove the ability of telecommunications carriers to extend the size and capacity of towers under the guise of routine maintenance, which goes on regularly at the moment. In fact, the bill would remove the ability of carriers to extend potentially highly visible antennae without scrutiny, which they can currently do. And, Deputy Speaker, in regard to developments in sensitive areas, the bill requires that ACMA, Communications Management Authority, will have to be satisfied that all alternative, less sensitive sites have been looked at and have been found to be unfeasible. And in any case, the authority would not be allowed to grant a permit for a new phone tower within 100 metres of a community-sensitive site, such as a school or local landmark. Deputy Speaker, in closing, I'm not trying to shut down telcos. I'm just wanting to give the community more rights. At the moment, the telcos don't need a development application for a low-impact development. And even for a high-impact development where they do need to put in a development application, councils tend to approve them because councils know that ultimately the telco has all the power and the right of appeal to ACMA, and any council decision can be overturned. So no wonder some councils, they just roll over. They feel bullied. They feel there's no point fighting the good fight on behalf of the local community, even when the council thinks there is a fight to be fought. This bill simply seeks to level the playing field and to give the community rights. I commend it to the House. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Is the motion seconded? I call the member for Melbourne. Sorry.